This is the sermon for Memorial Day weekend, 5/29/22, and I want to talk about Sabbath. So first I'll read from Genesis 2:1-4. Heaven and earth were finished down to the last detail. By the seventh day, God had finished the work. On the seventh day, God rested from all the work. God blessed the seventh day, made it a holy day, because on that day God rested from the work, all the creating God had done. This is the story of how it all started, of heaven and earth when they were created. And then from Mark 2:27-28. The Sabbath, Jesus continued, was made for humanity's sake. Humanity was not made for the sake of the Sabbath. That's why the human one is in charge even of the Sabbath. Well, how many of us have taken vacations and came home from vacation needing a vacation from the vacation? I'll admit that I've done it. In fact, I've done it pretty often. And why do we do that to ourselves? If I'm trying to fit everything into the available space and time on a vacation, to try to see everything, do everything in that place, if I'm cramming things in, I'm not really spending quality time at each of the activities or places anyway. And I'll tell you, the reason I do this on vacation is because I do it in my regular daily life as well. And so I need an overhaul of my time management and my sense of Sabbath. I'm confessing that to you. And, overwork can be a badge of honor in our culture. But I'm saying it is sin. It is sin in my life that I need a stronger sense of the holy day of Sabbath and of taking Sabbath time. And I do the best I can. When I kayak and when I hike, those are my Sabbath times during the week. It may not all be on one day. In fact, it will never be all on one day. But yeah, that's Sabbath for me because I pause and I look at nature and I connect with nature. But many of you do take Sabbath when you're on vacation, and I love having all of you to look up to and to model my own life after. So humanity, by its nature, has done everything it can to take control of space, material stuff, things, countries, environment. Think of how we've tried to control the environment. It's about hoarding. It's about power and control. And ponder the reverse for a moment. Who lays down power and control? Who lays it down? I can't think of anyone except Jesus. We want more and more power and control. And who seeks downward mobility? Nobody I know except Jesus. So, especially in governments, each country thinks that they're exempt from this kind of power and grasping and greed and controlling the environment and things and people. And we all think other countries do it, but we don't do it. I mean, controlling other countries. We all think others do it, but we don't. But it's human nature to want that as well. And all of that, seeking to control and to hoard and to and manage all of the things. It's very much like humanity grasping at being God. It's like we want to be and have the control that we imagine God has. So when humans think they're God, grasping after control of space and things and countries and wealth, we also think that we can control time. But who really controls either one? Especially time. Time is so elusive. But when it comes to controlling things, it's most evident in how we seek to control our houses and our immediate environments. We go to garage sales and we collect more stuff and we fit more stuff. But I'll let you in on a secret. We think we own stuff, but it owns us. And do you know why? It owns us because it owns our time. Everything we have collected owns our time. It has to be cleaned or organized or put away or managed in some way. And that takes time away from loved ones or Sabbath or being in nature. The stuff becomes the stuff of our lives, right? So, stuff is never far from our awareness, and we don't have an unlimited amount of time. So, it looks like we can control stuff, but in reality, it controls us because it controls our time. Look at the way we care for lawns. We reshape the spaces all around us. The green lawns that are uniform, perfect, without weeds, lush, however it is that we want them, that is not found in nature. And they've teased since the 1960s that the way we keep lawns in the U.S. is an expression of the denial of death, the denial of wildness of life and death. When I go into nature, hiking and kayaking, I don't see tightly controlled patches of nature like a uniform lawn. Right now, there are wildflowers, green wild growth, decomposing leaves, and fallen trees. A lot of people say, oh, but it looks messy. It's nature. It's meant to be messy. Yeah, unfortunately, our ego, our huge ego as humanity, combined with our need to control things, meant that we introduced non-native species. And some of those are bullies, and they are crowding out the native species, and it's a huge loss. If you've seen the garlic mustard, I think is what it's called, and it just takes over whole banks and whole riverbanks and whole patches of prairie and woods. It's distressing when the original was wild diversity. So we now pay people full time to manage the pests that are there, the non-native species that crowd out the good stuff. So soon we get old and so late we get smart, right? So maybe there's still time to learn to not mess things up. Time to learn in order to not mess up the future of food. Maybe we can still save creatures that are going extinct. Maybe we can still save bee populations and other pollinators because there's no food without pollination. And so maybe we can do that, and it won't be through control, it will be with working with nature. So what if we were to respect time as belonging to God? So all of this control over stuff and environment and things leads us to think that we can control time. But what if we were to let go of the notion that we can and must control all time and space? We think we're lords of the universe. What if we were to truly respect time and space, to trust God, and to respect the Sabbath? Things might return to something that resembles balance. What if we weren't so driven all the time as Americans? What if we took Sabbath as a gift, as a holy day? What if we could trust that we'll have what we need? This is the key for Sabbath. What if the community helped people understand that we won't starve or be homeless? Some are, and it's because there isn't a responsible sharing of the goods that God gives us that really rightly belong to God. What if we were able to not depend as if everything depends on our effort? We don't think there's God, not in the way we live. We think everything depends on our effort. Everything. What if we took Sabbath as a gift because we live as if things depend on God instead of all on us? What if we could take Sabbath in some form? God wants us to take time away from constant work and control. Think about this. God herself rested when creation work was finished. Did she need the rest? Not in the way humans, frail and weak and mortal, need rest. But I imagine God wanted to appreciate the beauty of this work of art that God had just created, the world and humanity and the creatures and the beauty of it all. What if God wanted to simply enjoy the fruit of this finished work? What made Sabbath day a holy day? And what is holy? Holy just means set apart. I would say that things that are set apart, holy, can be a sacrament, especially if it's part of God's design. God's good design, what if we took some time, maybe 1/7 of the time that seems to be allotted to us, not to control all of it, all 7/7, but instead to take 1/7 to celebrate rest, to celebrate the amazing gifts of God. Sabbath could look different for different people in different walks of life. It will look different for medical folks, for emergency personnel, for religious workers. I can't take Sunday as the Sabbath. And what about farm workers? What about people who are picking crops? What does Sabbath look like for them? I think in some ways it would depend on employers seeing all workers as human and as deserving the same rest that they themselves deserve. Part of the problem is that employers sometimes don't take a Sabbath day, and so therefore they don't think anyone needs a Sabbath day. Well, what if all humans needed Sabbath? What if employers and bosses had a sense of the humanity of each and the dignity of each human being in their employ? I think it used to be more like that, and now it feels like we're cogs in a machine. Everyone is entitled to less suffering and greater happiness. That's what I've talked about for a couple weeks now. And the wild thing is this fact. The more we increase happiness for everybody, the more our happiness increases and the less suffering there is. There's more happiness worldwide if we share. What if we could set down the drivenness, the greed, and the hoarding? What if we could be more concerned for the least, the last, and the lost as Jesus was? This characterized Jesus' life for all of his teaching, all the ways he touched human beings. He was concerned for everyone, especially those that the world overlooked. Sometimes letting others step up to work is a gift as well. That's part of the rhythm of work and Sabbath. And in the scriptures, we have 6 days of work and 1 day of Sabbath. Whatever it looks like, if it's 5 days of work and 2 days of Sabbath, or let's say 5 days of paid work, 1 day of household work, and then 1 day of true Sabbath rest. What if the world looked like that? Think how different things would be. What restores our souls? That is the question of Sabbath. What restores our souls? What do we need? What do women need for rest? Sometimes women go and they work full-time jobs and they come home and they do a second shift. Sometimes men and women care for elderly relatives. That's a second shift as well. A lot of it does fall to women. So what do human beings need for restoring the soul and for Sabbath time? What do those plagued by perfectionist standards, what do they need? And how do they celebrate Sabbath and time set apart? What do the poor need? Are any excluded from God's love? Are any excluded from receiving the gifts of work and Sabbath in a rhythm? I don't think God means for anyone to be excluded. All of it is connected. All of creation is connected in Sabbath. Individuals, families, workplaces, villages healthy and ill folks, the land, the countries, all need Sabbath without exception. We need to remember who we are as God's beloved, that all are included in the gifts of work and Sabbath. We need to remember who we are as God's beloved. All are included. Maybe if we honored the Sabbath, whatever that looks like in our lives, if we genuinely honor the Sabbath, it would restore some balance to the world. And maybe that would be contagious. If we begin to take Sabbath, what effects would that have in the world? Maybe we can advocate for others to also receive Sabbath time, others not as privileged as we are. Across all divisions in the U.S., there are many who don't know the value of Sabbath rest, and in all classes and all levels of wealth and poverty, all need Sabbath, and not all have access to it. What about people who run as hard and fast during the weekends as they do during the week? What do they need for Sabbath? Taking a walk in the woods, listening to the birds, caring for the earth, gardening sometimes is Sabbath. Laughing with friends. I love that as part of Sabbath. What does Sabbath rest look like for you? And what do you need? Amen.